I would like to begin with Libya on a rather somber note. 1 month ago tonight, on the anniversary of 9/11, Ambassador Chris Stevens and 3 other brave Americans were killed in a terrorist attack in Benghazi. The State Department has now made clear there were no protesters there. It was a pre-planned assault by heavily armed men. Wasn't this a massive intelligence failure, Vice President Biden?
What it was a tragedy. And secondly, we will get to the bottom of it, and wherever the facts lead us, wherever they lead us, we will make clear to the American public, because whatever mistakes are made will not be made again. When you're looking at a president, Martha, it seems to me that you should take a look at his most important responsibility. That's caring for the national security of the country. And the best way to do that is take a look at how he's handled the issues of the day.
More importantly, yesterday, they held a broad news conference over the phone in which they made it very clear that it had never been the State Department's position, I repeat, never been the State Department's position, that in fact this assault was part of the reaction to a video or the like. This is corroborated by numerous witnesses and whistleblowers. Contrary to early assertions by the administration, let's understand, there was no protest, and cameras reveal that, and the State Department, the FBI, and others have that video. Speaking of video, the one in California, made by an individual and out there for a period of time, also clearly had no direct effect on this attack. In fact, it was September 11th, the 11th anniversary of the greatest terrorist attack in U.S. history, in New York, Pennsylvania, and at the Pentagon. It was that anniversary that caused an organization aligned with al-Qaeda to attack and kill our personnel.
Can we talk about, let me go back to
sure.
Libya. What were you first told about the attack? Why were people talking about protests? When people in the consulate first saw armed men attacking with guns, there were no protesters.
Because
why
that's
did that go on
exactly
for
what
weeks?
we were told by the intelligence community. The intelligence community told us that.
On the anniversary of the 9/11 attacks, Americans and American symbols in 2 Arab countries tonight are under attack by radical Islamist forces, and someone at the American consulate in Benghazi is dead. Unclear if that
was not aware of any actionable intelligence indicating that an attack on the U.S. mission in Benghazi was planned or imminent. This is not a case of protests directed at the United States.
It began spontaneously.
We've seen rage and violence directed at American embassies.
Sparked by this hateful video.
Over an awful internet video that we had nothing to do with.
Protests that arose because of the outrage over the video.
This video is disgusting.
Disgusting and reprehensible.
Where there is an offensive video or cartoon.
There was a hateful video.
This is in response to a video that is offensive.
You don't really believe that?
Chris, absolutely I believe that, because in fact it's the case.
They weren't there to demonstrate about some obscure film.
As Leon Panetta said, it was obviously a terrorist attack.
The government there saying that they had warned the United States about the situation in Benghazi and that it was deteriorating.
Days before the attack, there were warnings about insufficient security in Benghazi.
Chris Stevens was the first U.S. ambassador killed in more than 30 years.
Said in the months before his death, he talked about being worried about the never-ending security threats.
I don't know how you argue we weren't caught flat-footed.
Specifically about the rise in Islamic extremism and growing al-Qaeda presence.
It leads to questions.
Does it make any sense to you the level of, or the small level of security he apparently had with him?
The White House story crumbling.
I would say yes. They were killed in the course of a terrorist attack.
Hillary Clinton admitted that al-Qaeda was involved.
It wasn't just a mob action.
He said, it is self-evident that what happened in Benghazi was a terrorist attack.
What happened in Benghazi was a terrorist attack.
And that is what we saw play out in the last 2 weeks. As a crude and disgusting video. There's no video that justifies an attack on an embassy.
U.S. officials knew within 24 hours that this was an organized al-Qaeda attack.
Which said the U.S. government knew about al-Qaeda's involvement within 24 hours of the attack.
In the intelligence community, there are those who within the first 24 hours were saying this was a terrorist attack.
Why did Ambassador Rice give the American people bad information?
There is more proof that this was all part of an elaborate cover-up by the administration.
It's either gross incompetence and negligence, or in fact they are lying.
The president has a big investment in the narrative that not only is Osama dead, but al-Qaeda is finished.
And some of these militias are affiliated with al-Qaeda.
Al-Qaeda is very much alive. Clear that al-Qaeda is alive and well.
Bin Laden dead, al-Qaeda alive.
I was pretty certain, and continue to be pretty certain, that there are going to be bumps in the road.
Number two, Governor Romney, before he knew the facts, before he even knew that our ambassador was killed, he was out making a political statement which was panned by the media around the world.
Good morning. Americans woke up this morning with tragic news and felt heavy hearts as they considered that individuals who have served in our diplomatic corps were brutally murdered across the world. This attack on American individuals and embassies is outrageous. It's disgusting. It breaks the hearts of all of us who think of these people who have served during their lives the cause of freedom and justice and honor. We mourn their loss and join together in prayer that the Spirit of the Almighty might comfort the families of those who have been so brutally slain. 4 diplomats lost their life, including the U.S. Ambassador, J. Christopher Stevens, in the attack on our embassy at Benghazi, Libya. And of course, with these words, I extend my condolences to the grieving loved ones who have left behind as a result of these who have lost their lives in the service of our nation. And I know that the people across America are grateful for their service, and we mourn their sacrifice. America will not tolerate attacks against our citizens and against our embassies. We'll defend also our constitutional rights of speech and assembly and religion. We have confidence in our cause in America. We respect our Constitution. We stand for the principles our Constitution protects. We encourage other nations to understand and respect the principles of our Constitution, because we recognize that these principles are the ultimate source of freedom for individuals around the world. I also believe the administration was wrong to stand by a statement sympathizing with those who had breached our embassy in Egypt, instead of condemning their actions. It's never too early for the United States government to condemn attacks on Americans and to defend our values. The White House distanced itself last night from the statement, saying it wasn't cleared by Washington, and that reflects the mixed signals they're sending to the world. The attacks in Libya and Egypt underscore that the world remains a dangerous place and that American leadership is still sorely needed. In the face of this violence, America cannot shrink from the responsibility to lead. American leadership is necessary to ensure that events in the region don't spin out of control. We cannot hesitate to use our influence in the region to support those who share our values and our interests. Over the last several years, we've stood witness to an Arab Spring that presents an opportunity for a more peaceful and prosperous region, but it also poses the potential for peril if the forces of extremism and violence are allowed to control the course of events. We must strive to ensure that the Arab Spring does not become an Arab winter. With that, I'm happy to take any questions you may have. Steve?
There's a broader lesson to be learned here, and Governor Romney seems to have a tendency to shoot first, name later, and
as president, one of the things I've learned is you can't do that. It's important for you to make sure that the statements that you make are backed up by the facts and that you've thought through the ramifications before you make them.
Do you think it was irresponsible?
I'll let the American people judge that.
And again.
And they wanted more security there.
Well, we weren't told they wanted more security again. We did not know they wanted more security.
This rush toward a reduced presence of U.S. personnel continued even as a bomb blew a 12-foot opening in the wall of this very compound we speak about today. Requests for extensions of more security by the mission in Libya, however, appear to have often been rejected, or even, more deliberately, officials in Washington told diplomats in Libya not even to make them, or as we've had in sworn testimony, if you make them, they will not be supported.
So State Department was telling the folks on the ground in Libya, don't continue to ask for this help?
Correct.
Does part of you wonder if the security requests had been granted, those deaths could have been avoided?
Yes, I do. I think about that. I spend a lot of time thinking about that.
The conversation here, I want your comments on that specifically, the number you wanted at in Libya plus the additional 6.
We agreed to the the numbers between Eric and I and put forth those numbers. We felt great frustration, the fact that those demands were ignored or in some cases just never met.
The ambassador and the DCM, if I could just add,
you can
raised
finish.
Raised the same concerns. The DCM met with Das Lamb also in February, raised the same concerns in person, and it's my understanding that Ambassador Kretz made additional phone calls. All of us at Post were in sync that we wanted these resources.
If I could, Mr. Chairman, Lieutenant Colonel and Colonel Wood and Mr. Nordstrom, were you pulling your hair out? Were you just flabbergasted that, like, what can we do? What can we say? What can we put in writing? What can we say on the phone? What else can we do? Was that your sense, an attitude when you got the answers from Washington that you did?
We were fighting a losing battle. We couldn't even keep what we had. We were not even allowed to keep what we had.
If I could add to that, it was, I told the same regional director in a telephone call in Benghazi after he contacted me when I asked for 12 agents. His response to that was, you're asking for the sun, moon, and the stars. And my response to him, his name's Jim, I said, Jim, you know what makes most frustrating about this assignment? It's not the hardships, it's not the gunfire, it's not the threats. It's dealing and fighting against the people, programs, and personnel who are supposed to be supporting me. And I added it by saying, for me, the Taliban is on the inside of the building.
By us in serving like a consulate was in fact breached less than 60 days before, approximately 60 days before the murder of the ambassador in that facility. Isn't that true?
Sir, we had the correct number of assets in Benghazi at the time of 9/11 for what had been agreed upon.
Okay, my time has expired. To start off by saying you had the correct number and our ambassador and 3 other individuals are dead and people are in the hospital recovering because it only took moments to breach that facility somehow doesn't seem to ring true to the American people.
And again.
And they wanted more security there.
Well, we weren't told they wanted more security again. We did not know they wanted more security again.
Mentioned to him that U.S. officials in Libya had asked for more security there, and the Vice President replied, well, we weren't told they wanted more security there. We did not know they wanted more security again. That wasn't the testimony at the oversight hearing on Wednesday, though. Charlene Lamb conceded that she had refused requests for more security. So I'm wondering, what did the Vice President mean? What did he mean by we? Did he mean the administration? Did he mean the White House? Did he mean his office?
He was speaking directly for himself and for the President. He meant the White House.
Can you say on Libya that basically the buck stops with the State Department on security then? It doesn't stop at the White House?
Here's what I know. We were just talking about responsibility. And as President of the United States, it's pretty clear to me that I'm responsible for folks who are working in the federal government.
If you're the head man, you have to take responsibility. And, you know, he's going to have to explain that to the American people.
Ultimately, Mr. Romney, I think, is going to have to answer those questions because if he aspires to being president, one of the things you learn is you're ultimately responsible for the conduct of your operations. But and you know, Harry Truman said the buck stops with you.
I will be very specific. Number one, this lecture on embassy security. The congressman here cut embassy security in his budget by $300 million below what we asked for, number one. So much for the embassy security piece.
It has been suggested that budget cuts are responsible for a lack of security in Benghazi, and I'd like to ask Ms. Lamb, you made this decision personally. Was there any budget consideration and lack of budget which led you not to increase the number of people in the security force there?
No, sir.
And you know, Harry Truman said the buck stops with you.